Hi everyone, thank you for coming. I would firstly like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I am on, the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation. I would also like to acknowledge and pay my respects to all traditional owners across the country today. My name is Carissa. I'm a proud Jarwin, Warlpiri and Gurindji woman from Katherine Northern Territory, and I'm Support Act's First Nations Community Engagement and Social Worker.
Awesome. Yummy, you deadly mob. Mitch Tambo here. I'm a proud Camilla Ray man, and it's an honour to be your co-host for today's session, along with our deadly sister Carissa. This Support Acts session today is our second incredible Yarn Strong episode for 2022, where we'll be touching on finding your identity within music. And we have got the right panelists for that. So don't you worry about that, because we're going to introduce them real soon. So with that said, before we go into this conversation, I just want to let all you deadly mob know that are tuned in that this is an open conversation. This is what it's all about. There's going to be some really sensitive content within today's conversation. So if you feel triggered with the conversation, we have a dedicated First Nations helpline available. If you can't talk to someone immediately, we will set up an appointment for you. So don't worry. The number is 1-800-959-500. That's 1-800-959-500. Hit option 3 for the First Nations hotline. And please don't feel shame, because it's important that you just feel free to be able to just get it off your chest and have a yarn if you do feel like you need a conversation. And that's what it's all about. So with that said, let's hand it over to Carissa and meet our deadly panelists.
So Uncle Archie Roach AM is one of Australia's iconic storytellers and cultural figures, a proud Mara Nation man from southwest Victoria and a Bundjalung man from northern New South Wales. He is a singer, songwriter, author, and vocal survivor of the stolen generation, and as the life partner and collaborator of the late Ruby Hunter. Archie has carved up unique paths through 4 decades of Australian culture and left an impression that will be felt for generations. Welcome, Uncle Archie. Yolanda Finette is a Yorta Yorta woman. Yolanda Finette, a Yorta Yorta woman, is certified award-winning holistic life coach, holistic counselor, speaker, consultant, and well-being facilitator who honors identity, and well-being facilitator who practice honors identity, culture, personal sovereignty, and healing. Welcome, Yolanda.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hello, Yolanda.
Hello, Uncle. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
So before we move on, I just wanted to let everyone know kind of the mental health triggers of music workers. So mental health triggers of music workers is low or irregular income, fewer safety nets. It's very transient. So this can impact the mental health of our music workers. It's a competitive environment, short-term for some, and it can also be very physically straining for a lot of music workers. And then you have our First Nations mental health on top of the music industry's mental health, and that's disempowerments, that's substance abuse, that's intergenerational trauma, grief and loss, the stolen generation, which is going to be our basis of our conversation, incarceration, poverty, denied rights, third world conditions, and the lack of education and opportunity. So when you think about it on a holistic scale, mental health for First Nations people is super important for us to have those open conversations and to be able to talk on a platform such as Yarning Strong. So I just wanted to also touch on kind of a brief about stolen generation today. So thousands of children were forcibly removed by government, churches and welfare bodies to be raised in institutions, fostered out or adopted by non-Indigenous families as an act of colonisation. The removal of children broke important cultural and spiritual family ties and has left a lasting and intergenerational impact on the lives and well-being of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. There was an estimated 13,829 people in the stolen generation population aged 50 and over in 2014 to 2015. This represents 2/3 of the total of the stolen generation population, 20,891, born before 1972.
Mm.
These 13,829 people represented 14.3% of all Indigenous Australians aged 50 and over. In 2018 and 19, members of the stolen members of the stolen generation. And the reality is that the number of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children in state care has continued to rise. This is not just an issue of our past, this is an issue happening today. So while there was stolen generation back in our past, it's actually continuing to increase dramatically. So while the intent of child removal today may be different to that experienced by the stolen generation, the effect is still the same: a loss of identity and an exposition on intergenerational trauma. Music has an integral part to Aboriginal Australian and Torres Strait Islander people. They tell stories of your people, your Māori, your culture, identity, and it gives us purpose. As Uncle Archie has said, it is important to find your voice and ways to express yourself so you can be heard too. The power of music is healing. Thank you for those wise words, Uncle Archie.
No?
So I'm going to pass over to Mitch, and Mitch will get into those questions.
Deadly, thanks, Carissa, for just giving us a bit of information there. I know that you're a well-researched sister, so thanks for taking some time there. And, you know, the reality is there's a lot of people out there that don't have a certain level of depth around stolen generations and are educated with that, tend to have, you know, the attitude of just get over it, move on, it happened ages ago. But what they don't understand is, like you said, it's never stopped. Kids are still being removed. Statistics are still climbing, which flows into all kinds of other troubles like suicide. Loss of identity continues. The circle of trauma is just still growing and doing its thing, it's quite sad. But then on the other flip side, there's a lot of Deadly Mob out there doing lots of great work to bring awareness, to bring healing, and to finally stop this circle and start to heal our own. So we are in these times, they've never stopped, but it's with conversations like today that we hope to bring more awareness and bring more insight with the likes of Uncle Archie and other elders and other well-equipped people like Yolanda as well. So with that said, let's get into this. Let's ask some epic questions. First question, this is for you, Uncle Archie. I mean, as always, it's just such an honor and privilege to have a yarn with you. A lot of us mob have grown up with your music, and I think as we've gotten older too, we've been able to reflect and really see that you've taken us on a journey, and that journey being of one of you finding your own identity and sharing that with us all. And I feel like every time you've released a fresh album or a fresh piece of music or artistry, you've been able to share with us another unpeeling or another layer of who you are and another part of your own self-discovery and journey. And within that, you've allowed us to heal and identify certain aspects of ourselves through that journey of healing that you've undertaken. So I suppose with that said, to open up, how have you found identity in music?
Oh, well, I think music has a way of grounding you as well. You know, songs that I write, some are, I suppose, for others, but a lot of my first songs were therapeutic for myself, took the children away, and others just to help to heal or deal with that trauma. But through it, you know, through it all, you find out that music is a big part of not just who I am, but it's a big part of who who we are as First Nation peoples, and it's something that's always been with us, music and song, and so it's for me it's just natural that identity is also reflected in your music.
Yeah.
As as it has been for thousands of years, in this country. Yeah.
Yeah, well said, Uncle. To flow on from that, you're saying, you wrote these songs initially to obviously help deal with your own trauma and healing and to get things off the chest. How does it feel today, with many, many years have passed, knowing that there's kids out there today that could be 12, 13 years old that have just discovered took the children away, or be careful where you walk, a child was born here, or freedom with mouth power. And those songs are igniting their own journey of identity and self-discovery. They're now listening to these songs to soothe their own transgenerational trauma. They're just finding out that their great-grandparent or their grandparent was taken, and now they're on this path of like, who am I? Where do I fit and belong? And it's your music that's nourishing that journey. Like, how does that make you feel?
Oh, look, it's for me, it's just like I see that it's a cultural responsibility as an elder to do that, as well as like, unfortunately, a lot of young people that have become disconnected to their culture and to their people and country. A lot of young fellas, and girls and young fellas that I've seen have been locked up in places like where's it, Parkville, Parkville, and different institutions where they've gotten into trouble with the law for one reason or another, and nobody's really looked at why they're going through this, or why it is. And I sit down, and me and old Jack Charles, Uncle Jack, we sit down and talk to these young people, and a lot of them have got no clue as to where they're from, or who their country, where their country is, or who their family is. And but the good thing about elders is that we just have to hear a name, and I say, "Oh, I know that name. I know your people," and and so that's to be able to do that for me is I know it's just and not just it's empowering, not for just the young people, I suppose, if it is, but for myself, that we have that, and we can help them, at least help them in a way to find their way back. Yeah.
It's really quite sacred work in a way. And I know for myself, when we go to schools and we do things like that, you often come across a similar story. But for me, it always feels like, the place where I'm meant to be is with our young people as well. And it's great to tour and do music. We love doing what we do, but there's something really sacred about getting with the next generation and opening up these real conversations like we're doing here today. So thanks for sharing that, Uncle. I'm just going to move on to Sister now, Yolanda. You're here, definitely not forgotten, and you've got an incredible insight to offer us today. So I just want to open it up with you, if you don't mind, of what does it mean to you to set out and find your identity?
Thank you so much. And I love this question because, my business, one of my business values is identity. And it's the reason that I started my business many years ago, because of not only my own identity journey, but the identity journey of so many people that I was working with and serving. And, that question around, belonging and feeling connected and wanting to be a part of you know, a community, you know, is a theme that kind of came up over and over and over again. And it was definitely the, you know, the story of my life. And I think, you know, I spent a lot of time feeling very disconnected from my community, and not so much because of the way I was raised, because I was very lucky to be raised in my Aboriginal family with my mum and my nan, and, you know, beautiful elders and aunties. And but once you kind of leave the nest and you're out there, you know, there's a lot of people telling you who you are and who you shouldn't be. And, you know, it's not okay to be this way, but you have to be this way. And, you know, you kind of go through this whole experience of stepping from a state of feeling really powerful and proud of who you are, to all of a sudden kind of questioning that. And so I know in my own journey, it's been a journey back to that, you know, back to that place of sovereignty and connection, identity, and feeling really proud of ourselves. Because, you know, historically our people were, you know, they were told that being themselves, you know, I know my nan, you know, she was born and raised on Cumbragunja Mission, and she wasn't allowed to speak her Yorta Yorta language. She wasn't allowed to practice any culture. And she was basically, you know, taught and programmed to believe that, you know, the more she is white, the safer she's going to be. And so, you know, our old people were really systematically punished, I guess, for being who they are, you know, because of, you know, the policies of those times. So, you know, we develop an internalized self-loathing and a self-hatred, and you know, we're kind of pitted against ourselves, and it's a struggle. It's a real struggle. And I was, you know, I definitely didn't escape it. And so, you know, I was, especially, you know, when you are very proud, you know, you grow up very proud of who you are, and you know, you go to school and people, you know, you get ridiculed for who you are, and you know, you're not really this, or you're not really that, or, you know, and so there's a lot of kind of, you know, this whole kind of dance, I guess, you play. And I love, you know, for my children, you know, their experiences of school are just so different to, you know, to mine as a little girl, you know, where I felt like I was constantly ducking and diving and running. And you know, my children get to be really safe. And, you know, my daughter's teacher wears, you know, Clothing the Gap t-shirts, and constantly, you know, asks her how he can make the, you know, the space as safe for her as possible. So yeah, it's definitely a journey, and it's something that, you know, I have gone from kind of outsourcing my power to other people to really learning to be really proud and just stand really strong in that, and knowing that it's also honoring my ancestors when I do that, because, you know, my nan wasn't safe to be able to do that.
Yeah. Wow. Just to you know, flow on to your incredible response, because I feel like you've just shared so much with us and given us a really solid and brief outlook on your journey. Was there ever, and I'm sure there was, so I won't say was there, when was the turning point, you know, as a young person, say through school? Because I had a similar experience, you know, oh, you're not black, you're not white, oh, I guess you got a little bit of a broad nose, you got this, you know, like you constantly pulled apart every which way. And as a young person, it really can affect you on a deep level. It can make you angry. It can do all of these things. So was there ever a turning point that you recall where you hit this block and was like, no more, or, you know, I'm changing the course for me, or this is what I'm going to do? Like a moment that was really definitive in your young adolescent life, you know, that you look back on and was like, wow, that was really a special moment for me. You know, I could have went left or right there, and I did choose the right path, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think there was one pivotal moment. I think it was really when I started my own healing journey, and I call myself a bit of a late bloomer. I feel, you know, I made a lot of wrong turns and made a lot of, you know, went down some crazy pathways, and it wasn't really until in my late 30s where I started to there was just this part of me that knew the truth of who I was, and I was so sick of being gammon basically and pretending I was all these things, but it was almost like a chameleon. But you know, so you'd adapt, you know, in different spaces, but in those spaces I was losing myself. So I realized that I wanted to be me. I just wanted to be me, and it wasn't my responsibility to prioritize other people's comfort, you know, like to make other people comfortable because they didn't necessarily understand me or they didn't get me. And so it was about coming back to myself and prioritizing myself. So, you know, and it was a gradual process. And I think the more I healed and the more I worked on my own, you know, resolving my own internal conflict, the more I stepped into myself, if that makes sense.
Totally. It does. Thank you for sharing that. I think it makes a lot of sense. And I feel like a lot of people tuned in can relate to that 100%. I feel like, there's many people, you know, in my generation as well. You know, you go through the roller coaster and you come into the 30s or whatever time it is, and you just start to all of a sudden want different things, or just start to decide to look from a different perspective, or to just tackle some of those hard traumas or experiences head on and just go, you know, I don't want to carry this anymore. I'm getting through it. And I love what you said, like, I'm tired of being gammon here. This is not who I am. I'm not here to appease you, mob. You know, I've got my own journey. I've got my own purpose that I need to follow and I need to pursue, and it doesn't involve appeasing people, because, you know, I got a real message here. So thank you for sharing that. Uncle Archie, just want to swing back to you, if that's all right, Uncle, please, because we can't have you here and not get all these incredible golden nuggets off you. So I just want to come back to you, because, you know, obviously, if you're not familiar with Uncle Archie right now and you're tuned in, firstly, I'm sorry, you need to go and sort that out. Secondly, that's okay, because he's here, and we're gonna go and ask some of these questions. Some of them you've probably been asked 1,000 times, but there's always new listeners, isn't there? People tuned in, so it's all right. So, Uncle, you know, you've had this incredible career. Obviously, you've paved the way in a lot of different ways for us as young brothers and sisters. And I just want to know, for you, how did you find your identity in the music industry? Because your generation coming up as a young fella, having all this success, is completely different to like someone like me. You're in a generation that's just like, it's pretty hardcore for a black fella, let's be honest, you know. So how did you find and pave your identity in the music industry to a point where it's just solidified today and you'll forever be embedded in history?
No, look, it wasn't, like you said, Mitch, it wasn't easy at first. And, you know, fortunately, we found people that could go in and bat for us, you know, try just to get us a gig somewhere, you know. And, you know, so I was a, you know, he's a musician. He plays sort of like a folk, gospel, maybe, you know, light rock. Yeah, being categorised is another thing too. And then they'll go, oh, he's also Aboriginal, and bang, people stop and think, oh, well, I don't know, we might give this one a miss for now. So it wasn't easy, even just to, you know, get a gig at the pub somewhere. There had to come a time when people came and actually listened. Now, and it could have been, you know, a hall with a dozen people. You know, there's just about 100, but you know, there's only a dozen people in there, so and you're singing to them. Yeah. But it's those dozen people that are there that by word of mouth talk to other people, and so slowly but surely. I do mean slowly, but surely it you start to get a reputation. You know, I'm lucky I had support like well-known songwriters and like Paul Kelly, who went in and sort of, went into bat for me and then did a lot of things and actually stopped me signing one contract and said, no, that's not good enough. If he wasn't there, I would have signed it. And he looked at it himself and he goes, no, you can do a bit better than that to the record company I was with.
Wow.
And so I'm glad he did that, I got a better deal, but things like that. And then, like slowly but surely people start to listen to your songs and listen to your music, and they realise, it's not just about First Nation people, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. It's a human experience, and that's how my music has always been through the years. And once people realise that you're singing about, sure, it happened to me because of who I am, but it can happen to anybody, really.
Yeah.
If the government had a mind to do this and that, that's what it's about. It's about those that are in power and what they can do to a people. So not just us. So you eventually find people understand who you are, not just because you're Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander, but through your music, get an idea of what who you are and what you mean and what you're trying, what you stand for.
Yeah. Well said, Uncle. You pretty much answered like half the questions in one answer, really. You just, it's incredible hearing you speak, because I can't help when you speak, like trying to imagine what it would have been like seniors there going through these hurdles and obstacles, but then you've got great people that would just drop in and out at pivotal times, like Uncle Paul Kelly there with the contract and things like that. It's almost like, you're obviously destined to do what you were to do, and you're in such a hard space in history, but with the right people here and there throughout your journey, and you being able to, be steadfast and know what you love and what you want to do, you got through it and ended up with an incredible career. And I'm sure you've impacted, tens of thousands of people. It's pretty crazy. And I was just thinking as you spoke, talk about full circle. I remember being like 14, maybe 13 years old, Tamworth Country Music Festival, the cultural showcase at the PCYC. Me and all the boys opened it up, Crobbery styles, painted it up. And then there we were sitting barefoot at the front of the stage there with you, Auntie Ruby there, I think your son and a couple of others, and you ducked in and played a set for all the mob. So there you go. As you're talking about your journey, I'm like, oh, that's right. I remember that happened. We're sitting there at the front there, barefoot on the floor. Uncle Archie rocks up, blows in, and blows all the mob away. I remember that moment. Just wanted to put that out there. But look, really quickly, and I'll put this to you too, Yolanda, if that's cool. We'll just go one after the other, because I think there's going to be two really interesting perspectives. Because, Uncle, I've seen that you're on TikTok. So it's interesting, you're on TikTok, couldn't escape it like the rest of us. What do you think, though, about, the power of music and sharing music on social media with all the commentary, especially now, because obviously, like, for you coming up, you've experienced so much like firsthand, in the flesh, physical experience that is quite negative and derogatory. And then we have a platform like, say, the social media aspects, where it can be really like that too, with the keyboard stuff. So, yeah, what is your thoughts about, sharing who you are, your identity, the power of music on social media?
Oh, no, look, it's a new technology. It's a new way of communicating with other people, and you've got to get into it, or you're pretty much left behind, really.
Yep.
And that's honest truth.
For sure.
But to be able to share your music, your thoughts. I have not just TikTok, but I have my own YouTube channel where we have we just talk about lately I've been talking to up and coming musicians.
Okay.
And young like people that are already established, and others that probably not so much, like Alara, Patterson
Right.
Beach,
Yep.
Jay Miller, a young bloke from Northern Territory,
Yeah, I know him. Yeah.
based in Adelaide, and just sitting down talking to them about their music, and then they in turn give me feedback about my own music and what it's meant to them through the years.
Sure.
And so it's like I said before, Mitch. It's a new technology. It's the way to communicate now these days, and we've got to be up with it, or I know you're left behind, like you said.
See you later.
They're writing sound. Nobody writes anymore.
Yeah, that's right. It's crazy. I mean, yeah, well said. And I love the fact that, in that you're able to share, obviously, the beauty and the power of social media, because like with your series on YouTube, you're actually able to connect with other artists and have a real interaction that's genuine. But on the flip side of that, what would your advice be to any young ones on social media that have never really experienced criticism? What would a bit of advice be to navigate that? Because, for a lot of young ones on the socials, getting a few negative comments out of like 100 good ones could be enough to just keep you sleepless for a week, So what would be your advice?
Oh, look, it's one thing I've always said to a lot of people and young people is that, you must always love. You have to love what it is you do. You've got to love, if you write songs, if you perform, you've got to love it. And don't stop loving it, because that's what's going to bring you down here. Because listening to negative comments, that sure they'll be there, but don't let it ever stop.
Yeah.
Your love for performing music, playing songs, playing an instrument, because that's what I got into it. Still today, that's why I'm still here. It's because I still love to get up and sing a song.
Yeah.
And especially a song that I've written and thought, when a song's good or bad, the bad ones end up in the rubbish, and the good ones, you tend to come back to and say, oh yeah, we can mold this into shape. And that's what it's about. It's about you, how you feel about yourself, how you feel about your music. There'll always be naysayers, but that doesn't matter. You've got to love what you do.
100%. You got to love what you do and just believe in that and stick to the course.
Believe in it, of course.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks, Uncle. Yolanda, talk to us, please. Social media, the power of music on there, your experience. Love to hear it.
Oh gosh, social media.
That's how everyone answers most of the time. Oh, geez. Oh, God.
Yes. Look, I am somebody. I don't have a big, I'm not a big social media following. However, it's a big part of my business, because obviously it's how people find me in the work that I do. And I know a lot of the people I coach, they have big social media followings. So this is often a topic that we kind of work through in sessions. And, particularly, you can, exactly what you said, Mitch, we can have, 65,000 people complimenting us, and that one person that says a negative comment, we will focus on that, and it will just go over and over and over. It's it's human nature. It's how we're wired. And so I think the more that we kind of remind ourselves of those people that love us, and I love what Uncle said around loving what you do, and just focusing on the love, because the other side of that is fear, and we have a choice in every moment. But I think with social media, and what I always talk about is just the importance of you kind of being in control of it and not letting it control you, and being really clear with boundaries around how much time you're spending on it, and really pulling in the self-care and taking care of yourself. And sometimes that might mean having somebody else be your social media kind of manager. I know in music where you don't even you don't get into your inbox. You let somebody else kind of filter it, and they can report to you what they need to report to you, but other than that, you kind of don't need to worry about that. And so I think it's just really important to sort of set clear boundaries for yourself with social media, having set time that you're on it, not allowing it to kind of take over your days, and disconnecting and connecting with real life as much as possible, I think is really important, because as we know, social media is just a highlight reel of everybody's life. I'm certainly not, you're not seeing the ins and outs of my my bad days. I'm posting when things are going great, and I'm posting all the good stuff. You're not seeing me in fetal position in the corner of my bed. I mean, some people do, but I certainly don't. So if you followed me, you're like, oh gee, she's got a deadly life. Which is just a 10%, even less snapshot of what of my day. But that's essentially, we get caught up in that. We get caught up in, oh geez, and start comparing ourselves to others. So I think it's really important to have those boundaries, remind yourself of the real world, and connecting with people in real life as much as possible, and taking care of yourself as much as you can too.
100%. Well said. I mean, it's so true, isn't it? Like, we were having a yarn the other day, because we're obviously losing a lot of young people to the powers of social media, and just having that yarn around the fact that, hey, don't forget, everyone's got access to 20,000 different variations of filters and backdrops and all these different things. Remember that whilst it's on there and you are being true to yourself, there's a big portion of it that's not real too. That doesn't mean people are fake. It just means we have access to all of these tools to enhance our appearance, enhance the way our life looks, but just don't lose sight of the fact that it's not, there's a percentage that's just not real, because a lot of people end up looking in the mirror and thinking, oh my God, look at this. I got this pimp. Oh, I'm so ugly, blah, 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 blah. And it aids and can, snowball into all these mental health issues that result into a tragic ending. So I think it's important to have fun with it, embrace it, go all in, but try your best to do what you said. And that is, get outside, go for a walk, hang out with your friends in the flesh, go and do an old school sleepover. Don't forget to, do all these things that make us just as human as well, if not more human, because it's so easy to get lost on the reels, flicking through, and all of a sudden hours have passed and you just think, wow, everyone's got great lives, what's wrong with me? But we forget that that's only 10%, and a lot of these mob are in bed too, flicking through, not doing too much on it.
Without filters.
That's it. No, thanks for that. I love both your insights. I think it's really going to help a lot of people. It's great. To you though, while I've got you, Yolanda, what defines success for you and your journey? What defines success? What do you think?
Oh geez, that's I mean, it's a loaded question. There's a lot there. I think knowing what I know now, and the experiences that I have, and the way life has kind of played out for me, what I see is, for success, is really being me without apology, just being me, full stop, not without having to kind of validate or to have a but. It's just me. And I think really have a really strong sense of my purpose and my values, and living life according to those. So really making a conscious effort every day to live true to who I am, and not steering away from that. And I think the reason that I made wrong turns in my past is because I was living according to other people's rules and other people's values and other people's definition of who I should be. And I was miserable. I was very depressed. I was institutionalized for mental health, because I was just in this constant fight against who I was. And I think success for me isn't about fame and fortune and money, although you can give me some money, but it's really about peace and contentment and calm, and knowing that I every day can make a difference in serving my mob, and you know, being able to do exactly what I need to do, you know, without, you know, I come from 25 years working in child, youth and family services, and it was day in, day out of working according to a system that I just was so, it was so misaligned with who I was. And I was making decisions every day that totally didn't sit with me. And all I did was fight. And, you know, I was that quintessential angry Black woman because I'd just be fighting in meetings. And I spent day in, day out feeling angry. So, you know, I took responsibility and ownership of that by starting, you know, starting my own business. And, you know, now I get to work with people in a way that's completely aligned with, you know, my own values. And every day I don't have to serve a certain number of people to get funding, and the government isn't going to take money away from me because I didn't do things the way they wanted me to do them. I get to be true to who I am culturally and, you know, spiritually and mentally and emotionally, and so that's success for me.
That's so awesome. I love that. Uncle, what about yourself? Uncle Archie, what does success mean to you?
Oh, yeah, it's similar to what Yolanda was talking about. But, it's about, you know, of course, it's easy to get lost in this industry, so-called industry, music industry, and so, you know, it's sort of coming back and finding myself again, and like being true to myself and not wanting to, because I go in there when I first kicked off, you know, thinking, oh, you know, I've got to be like this, I've got to be like Paul Kelly, I've got to be like, you know, whoever else, you know, men at work, men as anything, I've got to be like them. I've got to do this, I've got to do that in order to make it. And I realised all through it all that, just to be yourself, and that to me is success, and people. See, people. It's what people aren't silly. They'll smell things like when you're not being true, when you're not fair dinkum, so to speak, about what it is you do. You know, it's not really you. So you've got to find yourself again, and people. The fact that people still sit, you know, I can, you know, sell sold out shows that's one way of success. That's a sign of success. But I think it is. I've been doing this, you know, over 30 years, and I think, you know, to be able to do that, I must be doing something right. You know, eventually, I had to be doing something right, and it had a lot to be, like Yolanda said, being true to who you are, because people can smell, you know, BS miles away, and you know, and that, you know, and they're just not going to be come around anymore if they go. So you've got to be, you know, you've got to be true to who you are, and not just, you know, what you do, your music. You know, you can't sing a song about domestic violence, like walk in the doors and you go and beat up your partner, you know, and stuff like that. It's just not going to work. You know, people won't listen to that song, and you're just going to feel like a fake anyway.
Yeah.
So basically, yeah, I'll just keep rambling on a bit, so I'll finish there. Yeah.
No, look, I just wanted to go a bit of a bang question to both of you, just to quickly grab the two perspectives so I didn't get in the way, because I love what you said, Yolanda, and then into you, Unc. And I feel like, you know, the common thread is just be true to yourself, and wherever you stay true to yourself, and you stay true to your own truth, it's likely you're going to land on your feet and you're going to be okay. And it's great. And like often when I'm having a yarn with people and we open it up, you know, there's a lot of young ones out there that's like, well, you know, I can't sing or I can't play footy, or, you know, they amount their success to another individual, like they might look at me and go, oh, you sung and went here and there. I can't do that. Or Uncle Archie, look at him. Or, you know, Yolanda, look what she does. Like, I can't do that. But it's not necessarily about that. Success to someone could be just having a full-time job at IGA, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, success comes in so many different formats, but it's all about staying true to yourself and doing the best that you can. And wherever you're having a crack and being true to yourself, well, that's, to me, that's it. That's all it's about, isn't it? That's, you know, success isn't just I have to be in the NRL. It's just being true to yourself. So I love what you both had to say. And in wrapping up, this question again is for both of you guys. It's last question. And that is, what are the common challenges you see people face when it comes to finding identity? And I just feel like it's a great question to end on with both of you, because, you know, a lot of the time in the yarns I've had, you know, so many people can feel so alone in their journey of, you know, trying to find loved ones' identity, figure out who they are, stolen generation kind of things, where when you stop sort of feeling scared and fearful around talking, you realize that a lot of other people have had a similar experience, and there's a real, whilst they're different journeys, there's lots that we also share as well, if that makes sense. So I just wanted to open that question up.
Yolanda?
I can go.
Yeah, go.
Well, speaking from, you know, a lot of people that I work with, a lot of what comes up is this sense of not being enough, and it's not being black enough, being white enough, being good enough, being smart enough, being, you know, just all the enoughs. And just, you know, a lot of people you know, have you know, they feel like they aren't accepted or won't be accepted in community. And imposter syndrome is a big one that I work with, and that's really that fear of being found out as a fraud. And, you know, it's a real hangover of colonization, because, you know, our culture and, you know, who we are was stripped away from us. And so there can be a sense of kind of guilt among a lot of young people, or, you know, not even young people, but a lot of Aboriginal people who are disconnected from culture and community and mob. And so while there's this, you know, I mean, even for myself, you know, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and I come from a real strong activist family, and being Aboriginal to me growing up, I thought it was attending meetings and going on marches. Like, that was being black, you know. And I'd hang around with my aunties and I'd make them tea and coffee, and you know, that was, and you know, run around with all my cousins at the Aborigines Advancement League in Thornbury. You know, that was how I thought defined being Aboriginal. And it wasn't until, you know, as obviously we started to reclaim and reconnect back and it was starting to feel safe to be to connect to our cultural practices and language and stuff again, that, you know, now things are shifting. There's this beautiful, you know, reawakening of our language. And I know, you know, my kids are learning Yorta Yorta, I'm learning Yorta Yorta, and it feels like a real privilege and a gift, you know, after my nan, you know, was not allowed to speak language at all. So I think, you know, I think there's the challenges I really see are this constant fear of not belonging and not accepting. And, you know, I do work a lot with Soul and Jen, not only descendants, but you know, the children and the grandchildren. And you know, and I often say to them, you get to reshape your identity the way that suits you. You know, you get to recreate that for yourself and define who you are for yourself. And, you know, this is your story. You know, it's okay to be disconnected or to not have grown up, you know, with community. That's your story. Own it and be proud of it, and honor that, you know, honor that part of your story, rather than try to fit into somebody else's story. And, you know, I have no shame in saying I don't know a lot about, you know, I can't speak a lot of language. I don't know a lot of traditional ceremony, but I'm okay with that, because there's other parts of who I am that I strong in, you know, and I'm really strong in. And I also get to continue to connect with my elders and my community to continue to learn, because it's, you know, we're on a lifelong journey. It's not just, you know, it's not just, you know, one size fits all. So yeah, I think that's, I've probably gone off on a bit of a tangent.
No, I think that was great. And I love what you had to say there. I thought was just really well said. Yeah, 100%. I just love how, you know, you've been very open with us today. So I really appreciate it, because I think it resonates a lot. And I think a lot of people will agree and feel that, you know, especially the whole imposter syndrome and just all those kinds of things. So that's why I really wanted to open that question up. So if you don't mind, Uncle Archie, I'd love to hear your perspective, please.
No, yeah, it's has a lot to do with that. A lot to do with how other people do and continue to do today. Try to define what Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander, what First Nation person is, and because you don't do this, because I haven't come to kangaroo with a spear, I can't be Aboriginal. When was the last time I threw a boomerang? And it's like, all these things are pretty superficial, really, as far as the culture goes. The culture goes way deeper than people might think. I mean, you're talking about thousands and thousands of years of knowledge. And it's not just about, you know, going, you know, wearing a lap, going out and kangaroo, hunting a kangaroo. You know, it's about the cosmology, the stars, what we know of the land, the seasons, how observant we are, you know, about the bush, and you know, where to get a feed, where to get, but just the spirituality of our people. It goes way deeper than hunting a kangaroo with a spear, and but people will always you know, try to define who you are because you're fair. They said, "Oh, you look like a white fella," you know, and that's got nothing to do with being Aboriginal. Aboriginal doesn't mean, you know, the colour of your skin or how black you are. It means how deep, you know, that river runs through you, and that's, you know, you know, it's not easy. It's not easy, but if you know, people will always do that. They still do it today. I'm sick of hearing about people saying, "Oh, well, you know, he says he's Aboriginal, but he's not really. You're not a real Aborigine." I said, well, what does that mean? Well, you're not a real Aborigine, are you? He said, well, I don't go out and do corroboree and, you know, wear a lap, you know, hunt a kangaroo every day. Or what are you saying? And sometimes people won't even have an answer for that. I said, it goes far deeper than you can ever imagine. You have to be Aboriginal to understand that.
Well said. I love it. I just love what you said. It's so true what you're saying, and it really is a spiritual experience. And you know, I remember being a young fella and just experiencing, you know, corroboree for the first time, just as someone sitting there, and I'll never forget the feeling that come over me in the depths of my spirit. And that was the end of it for me. It was just like, whoa, whatever this feeling is, I just need to have it for the rest of my life. You know, and it's not like you said, you know, just going out as a spear, getting a roo every day or whatever. It's this deep seated connection that it doesn't matter, like what you're saying about the fairness of skin or generation to generation. It's a spiritual gift that's been handed to us by our ancestors that have walked on country since the beginning of creation, that transcends into the stars, into the waterways, into the wind. It's everywhere. And it's a feeling, it's a knowing, and it's a connection. And often or not, you know, when we do yarn with young people, it's that thing. It's like, you know, you don't have to worry because it's already all in you. And when the time's right, you're going to discover what you need to know, because what you're feeling is your old people calling you home, you know. And when we call it, you know, being called back to the fire, and it's a beautiful spiritual exchange that, yeah, I just love what you said. Just pumps me up. I'm ready to just run outside, you know, just gives me all this energy. It's beautiful. So thank you so much for sharing that with me both. And before I hand it back over to Deadly Carissa, I just want to say congratulations on that beautiful monument of you and Art that I seen the other day online, the beautiful structure that they created for both of you. And I just think it's, I think it was a pelican and an eagle that represented both of you. Yeah. And I just want to say, you know, just as a young brother or a youngish brother now, how deadly it is to just see staunch Black love and that being celebrated, because it hasn't been celebrated enough at all. And I think, you know, there's one side of your story that's an incredible musician, but something that really stands out to me is just the open, deep love that you have for Art, and the relationship that you shared. And I think it's so powerful that it almost transcends the music, because we don't see enough of it, and we need to see more of that, because often or not we hear about all these negative statistics that could surround DV or relationship breakdown, you know, all of these negative things, but we don't celebrate Black love enough, and it's not celebrated enough. And the fact that through the course of your whole journey, there's just been this narrative of such a strong, unbreakable love story, it's done a lot for a lot of brothers and sisters. And I think in just giving hope as well, you know, that it's achievable, and that, oh, you know, go and get someone else from outside of the culture, you know, like, you know, a lot of the banter that we've heard, I think it's so deadly to just witness just straight up, undeniable, unbreakable Black love that's lasted the test of time, and see that be celebrated everywhere. So I just wanted to say congratulations, and just thank you for sharing that with all of us, because it's been such a beautiful journey to watch just as a youngish fella. And I'm sure a lot of sisters and other brothers can say the same, and obviously uncles and aunties too. So thank you. And thank you, Yolanda, for sharing with us today, and being so open with your conversation. It's just been real deadly yarning with you both. So with that said, Carissa, welcome back, my sister.
Thank you all for coming and joining us on this panel today. It was really beautiful, like what you spoke about in terms of identity. My grandmother was stolen generation on my father's side. My grandmother on my mum's side, she almost got stolen, but her story was different. They actually covered her in charcoal, and she got to stay in her community. So, you know, there's that connection there, and identity there still strong. But I really loved what you both said, and I think this will connect with a lot of First Nations people and musicians as well, who are working in the industry, trying to navigate their way through the music industry and finding their identity. So thank you both for coming.
Yeah.
But thanks again.
Thanks,
and
Uncle. Take care.
Bye.